Welcome to this event, Messages of Hope. My name is Obi Ford III. I'm Campus Director of Equity and Diversity at Washington State University, Vancouver. Go Cougs. And for the next 2 hours, I will serve as your moderator. Now, before we get started, I would like to point out a few housekeeping and safety rules. First, no food or drinks are allowed in the auditorium. Bathrooms are out in the lobby entrance to your left. And in the event of an emergency, we have exits to the rear of the auditorium. We are fortunate this evening to have Spanish-speaking and American Sign Language interpreters here to accommodate members of the audience. They are purposely located at the front of the audience with L'Oreal Aviles and Angela Wonder, and at the rear of the auditorium with Yvonne Rivero. Thank you. Tonight's event is brought to you by Southwest Washington League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC, Council 47013. Yes. Healthy Living Collaborative of Southwest Washington. Latino Community Resource Group. And One America, Vancouver. The purpose of this event is to bring the immigrant and non-immigrant communities together to hear about the successes of Attorney General Bob Ferguson in pushing back on anti-immigrant policy, hate, and discrimination that the current administration has brought forth, and to allow local elected officials to share their support of local dreamers and their families, immigrants, people of color, and the LGBTQ+ community, despite what transpires in DC. This evening, local elected officials are joining us in a panel discussion, and they are Mayor Pro Tem Bart Hansen, newly elected Mayor of Washougal, Molly Costin, and Clark County Council Chair Mark Bold. There will be time for questions and answers with Attorney General Bob Ferguson, and if there's time, with our local elected officials. Now, I would like to read a letter signed by both the Chancellor and Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs at Washington State University, Vancouver, and it reads, WSU Vancouver is a community of people of diverse origins. A survey of entering students in the fall of 2017 showed that more than a dozen languages are spoken at home by those students. The variety of languages cultures, and national origins brought to the university by these students makes the university a microcosm of the world in which all of our graduates will function. We are committed to intentionally creating a community in which people come together across all the differences of identity, including national origin and documentation status, in which we can learn, work, grow, and thrive. We recognize that achieving this goal takes hard work and that we must all bring our authentic selves to this work. Therefore, we are very happy to be involved in this community, which seeks to invigorate hope for dreamers and dreamers. We are striving to create equitable learning and working conditions for all, for those who were born right here in Vancouver, and those who were born in other countries and who have traveled here as adults or as children, brought across the border by their families. Signed, Mel Netzhammer, Chancellor, and Rennie Christopher, Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs. It makes me proud to have chosen WSU Vancouver as my employer. At this time, I would like to recognize any leaders in the audience, elected officials other than our speakers. If you are present, please stand and be recognized. Introduce yourself.
I'm Eric LeBrand, Port of Vancouver Commissioner. Sorry, I got the day job.
I saw the signs. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you both so much. Now at this time, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Diana Avalos-Leos. She is Operations Program Manager for Healthy Living Collaborative. Over the years, Ms. Avalos-Leos has served on several boards, including Washington State Hispanic Youth Plan, and she was Community Engagement Coordinator for Vancouver Public Schools. Diana is the founder of Clark County Latino Youth Conference, an annual conference that inspires first-generation youth to pursue higher education. Please welcome Diana Avalos.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Dr. Ford, and welcome everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight with us. Tonight, I will be reading a brief statement written by a dreamer from Southwest Washington. Hello, my name is Anna, and I am an undocumented but not a DACA recipient. I am not speaking in front of you today, not because of shame, but because my loved ones and I are afraid of the repercussions I could face if I share my message publicly. Let me start off by telling you about myself. I was born in Baja California Sur, Mexico, but was raised in my father's home state of Nayarit, a place stricken by poverty and violence that has worsened over the years. Almost 20 years ago, my family and I fled from our home country out of desperation. After moving to Vancouver, I attended Martin Luther King Elementary School, Jason Lee Middle School, and Fort Vancouver High School. I quickly picked up English, and by the time my high school graduation came around, I was an honor student and a drum major in the band. Today, I am a student at Clark College, where I am scheduled to walk this summer with my associate's degree, certificates in Spanish and Women's Studies. And in the fall, I will start classes at Washington State University in hopes of double majoring in sociology and human development. In order to understand the complexities of undocumented people in mixed status families, let me tell you about my own. I have two younger sisters. One is currently in nursing school as a result of DACA, and the other one is a University of Washington alum who currently works at a college supporting and advocating for underrepresented students, also as a result of attaining her DACA. I have two undocumented parents who work themselves to the bone to financially assist my sisters and I with our education. Lastly, I have a beautiful 8-year-old boy who was born in the United States, a U.S. citizen, and who is suffering terribly and would suffer terribly if I was deported. As an organizer, I fight for those losing DACA and TPS status. Just as importantly, I also fight for those who are too old and too young for DACA, and for those same reasons who are unable to qualify. Although DACA has changed many lives, it has left millions of us under scrutiny. The executive order passed by President Obama was merely a Band-Aid solution on a deep wound, but has also provided many opportunities that have improved the lives of those in my community. By ending DACA and the TPS program, many have begun to lose their jobs, livelihoods have been disrupted, and have lost hope. When most of the U.S. population is in support of immigration reform, Trump is choosing not to listen, and we must continue to fight and stand up against racism. Dreamers are nurses. Dreamers are teachers. They are business owners. They're game changers. But most importantly, we are human. We are DACA. And this is why DACA must be protected, but also expand a pathway to citizenship. I will continue to fight the legacy of those who have fought before and after, and not let this current administration dismantle DACA without a fight. If our government doesn't come up with a bipartisan agreement soon, all of my undocumented community will be in danger of ending up in detention centers and eventually in countries that we call our birthplace, however unrecognizable to us. Let us all remember that DACA was never given to us. DACA was fought for, and we will continue to fight until my entire community is liberated. After hearing my message, I hope that you are all inspired to take action. If you are not ready, or if you are ready, call your representatives and demand the passage of a Clean Dream Act, one where I don't have to sign my parents' deportation notice in order for me to stay here in this country to pursue my own dreams. We must protect the original dreamers as well as our parents. Let me leave you all with this. Andre Lord once said, "Without community, there is no liberation." To conclude, I want to thank our Attorney General Bob Ferguson for taking the time out of his busy schedule, for joining us tonight, and for lifting our spirits with your message of hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Next is our guest speaker, Dr. Stephen Webb, Vancouver Public Schools Superintendent since July 2008. Dr. Webb is involved in the community through many civic organizations. He serves on the boards for the Greater Vancouver Chamber of Commerce and the Foundation for Vancouver Public Schools. He is also a member of the Washington State University Vancouver Advisory Council. He is the 2017-18 president of the Washington Association of School Administrators. Dr. Webb is here to share a message of hope from an educational perspective. He will then have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Attorney General Bob Ferguson. Dr. Steve.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Well, good evening. On behalf of Vancouver Public Schools Board of Directors and District Leadership Team, I want to thank you for attending this community forum. We appreciate the partnership of Southwest Washington LULAC, the Healthy Living Collaborative, Latino Community Resource Group, and One America Vancouver in co-hosting this event here at Fort Vancouver High School, home of the Trappers. In Vancouver Public Schools, we work hard every day to ensure that our schools are inviting, respectful, and safe learning environments for each student. We want all children and their families to know they are valued members of our culturally rich and diverse learning community. Since 2008, Vancouver Public Schools has scaled our community schools vision. Our whole system approach to public education is transforming students' lives. For example, since 2008, our district's on-time graduation rate has increased from 64% to over 82%, with African American and Latino students making the greatest gains. Today, our extended graduation rate now exceeds 85%. Together, we're cultivating hope and opportunity and building agency in children and in families. All children are entitled to a free public K-12 education, regardless of citizenship status. I want to be clear, the district does not ask about or know the citizenship status of its students or families, and if we were to learn of citizenship status, we would not report it. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, protects the educational record of every child. Vancouver Public Schools and its employees stand together to educate the children and youth of this community. We teach and learn together because through education, all things are possible. We are absolutely committed to our mission, which is about student success, preparing each and every graduate with the knowledge, skills, and habits to be college, career, and life ready, future-ready graduates. Now, it's my great honor to introduce to you the Attorney General for the state of Washington. Bob Ferguson is a nationally known and respected leader in protecting the people of our state against powerful interests that don't play by the rules. He is a fourth-generation Washingtonian, a graduate of the University of Washington and New York University Law School. Bob and his wife, Colleen, are the proud parents of 9-year-old twins, Jack and Katie. They had their hands full. And here are a few fun facts about Bob. He's an avid outdoorsman and has summited the highest point in 45 of the 50 United States. Quite an achievement. He's an internationally rated chess master who twice won the Washington State Chess Championship, and he loves baseball, something we have in common. He and a college buddy once took a trip to see a baseball game in every major league stadium. Please help me give a warm America's Vancouver welcome to Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson.
introduction. On that baseball trip, by the way, I should mention it was just after college, and a buddy and I decided to go see a game in every major league stadium, and we had the last 6 weeks of the season to do it. This is all before the internet, so we had printed out schedules and maps and stuff. And as if that wasn't hard enough to drive 15,000 miles and get to every stadium in 6 weeks, we had 2 ground rules for the trip. One was we could not stay in a hotel. So there's a lot of sleeping under the stars or in our car, or just met people at the ball games who would let us stay at their place. And number 2, we could not buy a ticket at the ticket window. So it was just the benefit of strangers at the games who would help us out with tickets, and we managed to pull it off at all 26. So it was a great time. Thanks to all of you for being here and inviting myself. And I'm joined by my chief deputy from my office, that's Shane Escobar. Give Shane a round of applause. There's 600 attorneys in our office, 600 professional staff. Shane leads the legal operations. He's the top guy in the office for that. And on the issues I'm talking about and the cases I'll talk about, Shane is obviously, deeply involved in all those cases and decisions. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to local elected officials who, one thing I've learned, I came from local government. I served on a county council for 9 years, and look, local government is closest to the people. It's, in my view, the most challenging work in politics, because you are closest to people, and that's where people see you in the grocery store and on the streets and at the schools and all that. And so it's great to have your local leaders here as well to support what this event is all about. So I'll talk for a little bit about what's going on, and I want to leave plenty of time for questions, any questions you have. So feel free to ask about what I chat about or anything else that might be on your mind. But I'll just jump right in. So the theme of the event is message of hope. And while I think we live in a dark time in our country right now with this administration, I don't think there's a way to really sugarcoat that. I think even despite that, there are messages of hope going on. In some ways, having that dark time inspires people to get involved who might not have been involved, or to speak out who might not have been speaking out. And from my perspective, I'm the Attorney General, right? So my job is to lead the largest law firm in the state of Washington on behalf of the people of the state of Washington. And I think one aspect of hope that I see is that the rule of law, which in many ways makes our country so great, has been a check on the current administration. Last year, my office filed 19 lawsuits against the Trump administration. It's not like I'm keeping score, but six of those cases have been decided, and we're 6-0. Just saying But the first case, Washington was the first state to file a lawsuit against the Trump administration, almost exactly a year ago to the day, I think, almost. And it was on that first travel ban, as you recall. And in making that decision, signed on a Friday night, and the next day we were all in the office working on it, and in making that decision, I did not anticipate that we'd be filing 18 more lawsuits. That was not a part of the plan by any stretch of the imagination. But I knew it was an important decision to anytime you sue a president. But that travel ban, people were being turned away at airports. You saw it happening in real time. Students at our colleges and universities. We had a graduate student at Washington State University who was traveling abroad, trying to return. Home. She was from one of the 7 Muslim majority countries and was turned away at the airport. It was outrageous. It was outrageous that was going on. And, candidly, it really pissed me off. It really did. I mean, it just struck me as un-American. It really did. It's a credit to the legal team that we really felt. You have to remember back then, the conventional wisdom that first weekend was a lawsuit would not work. The president had too much authority. An attorney general couldn't bring a lawsuit. If you turned on Anderson Cooper and listened to Professor Dershowitz from Harvard Law School or Jeffrey Toobin, legal experts, they said it'll never work. But we felt we had a good argument, and we won. And I'm proud of that for many reasons, for the impact that had on so many people. but also now you see many AGs filing many lawsuits. I'm going to talk about a couple that it really opened that up, that people realize, AGs realize, hey, we can do this and we can win. We see from this administration, we can go to court because the beautiful thing about a courtroom, it's part of the reason why I went to law school, is that in a courtroom, it is not the loudest voice that prevails. It's not. You can't tweet your way out of a problem in a courtroom. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, right? All that matters, right? All that matters, all a judge is focused on is the law and the facts of your case. That's it. There's no other conversation about anything else going on. That's what they're focused on. And I think that's frankly why we keep winning, is because we're focused like a laser on the facts of our case and the law. Today, in fact, interesting timing for this event. Of course, the State of the Union is tonight. And also, just a few hours ago, one of my attorneys, the head of my civil rights unit, Colleen Melody, who's from Spokane, Washington. She went to the University of Washington for law school. She finished first in her class at the University of Washington Law School. And now she's the head of my civil rights team. And she was back in New York arguing the case before a federal judge, our lawsuit challenging President Trump's decision to rescind the protections of DACA. We were in court today on that, and we feel good about how that went. There's already been newspaper accounts of the judge expressing, this is a federal judge, and candidly, his own outrage of what this president has said and done. And on that case, there are many things about all of these cases, the 90 cases, that matter to me and matter to the people. But one thing about each of those cases, besides the law, right, or the Constitution, that I think there are fundamental aspects of who we are as a people that are at issue in many, if not all, those cases. And I'll give you an example on the rescission of protection for dreamers, of which we have about 18,000 dreamers in the state, 800,000 around the country. This audience is very well versed about dreamers. And of course, as you know, in order to become a dreamer, you have to come out of the shadows. It's the first step. You have to communicate to the federal government who you are, where you live, where you go to school, where you work, who your family members are. They may or may not be documented. You heard that from the earlier testimony, right? May or may not be documented. You have to provide all that information, come out of the shadows and give it to the federal government. And the federal government has made a deal with all those individuals, all those dreamers, is that if you do that, we promise, we the federal government promise never to use that information against you, to deport you to a country you do not really know because you came here as a child. It's a deal, fair deal, right? You come out of the shadows, we won't use that information. The day that the president announced that he was rescinding DACA, something very interesting happened. Up until then, there's been a frequently asked questions on a federal government webpage that talks about the DACA program. So if you're curious, you go on there and it answers all sorts of questions. One of the questions is, when I give you this information, federal government, will it ever be used against me to deport me? Answer on that website, no. We'll never use that information against you. Pretty straightforward deal, right? On the day that the president announced the rescission of the DACA protections a couple months ago, that question and that answer were removed from that webpage. No. What's up with that, right? I mean, isn't a deal in our country? Right? Isn't that core value? You know, as I like to say, we've got 9-year-old twins. You heard about that, Jack and Katie. If my son Jack trades a Pokemon card to his best friend Elliot, who lives 3 blocks away, and he realizes 2 days later, wait a second, that Pokemon card that I gave away was more valuable than the one I got back. If he comes to me and says, Dad, I want my Pokemon card back, am I walking up to Elliot's house with him to ask for it back? Hell no. I'm telling my son, a deal's a deal. You made a deal, maybe that was a bad deal, maybe you don't like it now, but that's how it works. You gotta live by that, right? You shook hands on it. It's as fundamental as it gets in our country. Well, what does it say about our country that on something, we're not talking about Pokemon cards, are we? We're talking about people's lives, right? People's lives. Potentially being deported back to a country they don't know. And we're not going to live up to our end of the bargain on that? That's outrageous. That is. And that's at stake in that lawsuit. It's a part of our argument, is say, hey, the government has to live up to its promise to those dreamers. So it's an important case for all sorts of reasons. We feel confident about our chances in this case. We wouldn't file the case unless we thought we could win. But it's an example of the cases we're bringing. One thing that Colleen said, that I was proud that she said, and Colleen Melody, the lawyer, your lawyer in the courtroom, she said, hey, if these dreamers were basically mostly from Norway. Instead of, let's say, Mexico. Does anyone really think the president would be rescinding DACA? We announced the lawsuit. What I said was, if the majority of Dreamers were Caucasian, would the president have done this? We all know the answer to that question. We all know it. And that's a part of our case. You cannot make a decision like this with a discriminatory intent or animus, is what we call in the law. And that's a part of our case as well. Frankly, using the president's own words against him in the court of law, and that's also how we've been successful time and again. And one more thing I'll mention in terms of litigation that we have is you may be aware we filed a lawsuit against Motel 6. And this is a situation where I was actually traveling, I think at a conference, and I read about a situation in Arizona in a newspaper, New York Times or somewhere. And what had happened was, in Arizona, a newspaper reporter had uncovered that Motel 6, at a couple of motels there in the Phoenix area, was on a regular basis turning over to ICE, without a warrant, without anything, just turning over to ICE the list of individuals staying at the Motel 6 on any particular night. The ICE agents would go through and circle the Latino-sounding names, search for them, picking up people who weren't documented and beginning deportation proceedings against them. And Motel 6 had a statement saying, hey, this is isolated to a couple motels there. But there was something about that statement that made me suspicious. And so I called up Colleen and said, hey, Colleen, calling Melody again, would you take a look at that, put your team to work on it, which she did. Colleen's a tenacious woman. Her team, they were very good. We recently filed a lawsuit against Motel 6. It turns out it's not just isolated to Phoenix. Throughout Washington State, Motel 6s, without a warrant from ICE, nothing, one Motel 6, every day, on average more than once a day, Motel 6 would turn over the list of all their guests staying at the hotel, despite having a privacy policy that assures you as your guest that they'll protect your private information, and turn it over to ICE. Look, there's a lot of work to be done. Now, as a lawyer, not every problem can be solved through litigation, right? I can solve many that way, but not all. Some take activism, right? Writing to your legislators, your local elected officials at the local level, the schools, the policies that schools have. These are all so important, right? It's one piece of the puzzle, but it's important. And from that Motel 6, I read an article in the Columbian the day that we announced our decision to sue Motel 6. And they reported in the Vancouver Columbian about an individual who's been a resident of Washington State for 20 years. He's been married for 14 years. They have 7 children. His name is Mr. Flores Garcia. And while he lives here, he was up in the Everett area, and he stayed at a Motel 6. He was up there for work. Got picked up at a Motel 6, outside a Motel 6. Guy's been here for 20 years. He's got 7 kids. It was Valentine's Day. He was going to be coming home to have Valentine's Day with his wife. That's not right. You know? So whether it's the president, whether it's a company like Motel 6, look, if you're not playing by the rules, it's my job to hold you accountable. You got to play by the rules, right? I do. Shane does. The president does too. You know, Motel 6 does as well. Just the last thing I'll mention, I'll turn to your questions, is you know, it's when I say like everybody can make a difference in this, I mean, I really believe that in terms of the hope side of this, and that is, you know, when the first travel ban, when we won that first case on the first travel ban, we started getting some letters from people all around the world, not just emails, but handwritten letters, and people wrote, you know, deeply moving. Who writes letters anymore, right? I mean, deeply moving letters. There are things like, hey, I was born in a Japanese internment camp. This is what that case means to me. Or, hey, my relatives were in Nazi Germany decades ago and tried to immigrate, and some made it, some didn't, and suffered consequences. I mean, you get the idea. People were really writing deeply personal letters. And so when the first few came in, I thought, well, if someone writes from Washington State, writes a letter like that, handwrites it, I'll handwrite a quick note back. I figured there'd be 50 of them. Well, as Shane knows, it turned out to be just from Washington State. You know, there were 2,000 or 3,000 of them came in. There were a lot, just from Washington State, handwritten letters. So it became a bigger job than I first imagined. But I like lists. All the stadiums, right? So I'm gonna do them all. And so I started bringing the letters home at night, where I would write notes back. And so up until then, with my kids, 9-year-old twins, Jack and Katie, they were 8 then. You know, they didn't really know much about the travel ban or what was going on. To me, they just seemed like they were a little young for that. And so they asked why I was gone so much. Work was very busy back then. They asked why I was gone so much, and I just said, look, kids, the president did a bad thing, and Daddy's trying to stop him. That was the message to the kids at that point, and which they seemed to accept. That was, fair enough. And but I didn't really get into the travel ban. It seemed complicated, and would they really be able to track people? Well, it was interesting. I was home one night, and I received a number of letters from kids. So kids from Muslim-majority countries where their parents obviously had them handwrite a letter to me. So I'm at the dining room table, Katie's next to me doing her homework, and I've got this stack of letters, and I get to one from one of these kids, who, as it turns out, she's a girl, Katie's age, from Iraq. And she draws this, it's a kid's handwriting, obviously, so that gets Katie's attention, but the kid also drew this picture of me, which was really funny. And it had me in some kind of cape, and on my arm, she wrote, like, M-U-S-S-E-L-S, pointed at my arms, muscles, my arms, so it's pretty funny. And it's a great picture, so it gets Katie's attention, of course. So Katie says, Daddy, what's that? And I said, well, it's a letter I got at work from a little girl. So of course now she's interested. Why is a kid her age writing to her daddy about work, right? And so she asked, and so I read to her the letter this kid had written to me, which talked about her being from Iraq and being able to come to the country and be with her family and all that went with it. And in there she wrote, the little girl wrote, because you stood up, I can be here. Which is really, the most beautiful thing you could write. So Katie, she said, well, why are you writing back to her? I said, well, it's polite, right? If grandmother gives you a present, you write her a thank you note. That's the polite thing to do. So she's writing to me, so I'm writing her a note back. And Katie said, well, can I write her a note too? And so God bless her, she loves drawing pictures, right? So she draws a picture of a horse and she writes to this girl, and she says, my name's Katie, I'm also 8 years old, thank you for writing to my dad. And Katie said, well, hey, can I write a note on all the letters from kids? And so it became a thing we did every night for a long time. We'd sit together, and Judy, my executive assistant, would set aside the letters from kids, and we'd go through them. And so, it's interesting because, it's opened Katie's eyes, right? Because that girl wrote to me, but also, for what it's worth, I think it's in the next 2 weeks, that little girl's coming to our house with her siblings and her mom and dad to hang out with Katie. I'm not suggesting playdates are going to change the world, but they're a good start, right? They're a good start in terms of sharing stories and understanding and giving hope in a time of time that is a dark time for our country. So I'm going to stop there and take any questions that you have, and really feel free to ask about anything at all. I'm not sure. Are there any ground rules? They're getting microphones. Give them just 1 second here.
Let's give it up one more time. Okay, so this is how this works. We will take your questions, but you need a microphone, right? And so we have a mic for the audience. And do we have any questions from our group? I'm going to start here, and we'll work our way around. Yes.
Stand up, name.
Yeah, please stand, your name.
Hi, my name's Anelli. I'm a junior here at the school.
Oh, great.
Is there any hope for the DREAM Act that both to be passed, 2001 and 2010, to be passed this year in Congress by March 5th?
So the question, of course, as I think you all heard, is whether a DREAM Act will pass by March 5th. Well, first, I'm not an expert on the ways of Congress, right? I just want to be, but I track it pretty closely and have conversations, but still, take it for what it's worth, right? It's my opinion on it. I guess I'd say a couple things is, look, I admire all public servants, right? But Congress is a dysfunctional place, right? It just is. And so, it's, I want to be hopeful. I do. I want to be hopeful. I just find it so hard to believe that on an issue like this where, 70-80% of the American people support a Clean Dream Act? I mean, how many issues do we have that in our country this day where there's like that many people support an issue? It's rare. And so it's just so, damn frustrating that they can't just do it right. And so I'm less optimistic now than I was. If you asked me 2 months ago, I think they're going to get that deal done, right? But I'm less optimistic now. It's also in part why I filed the lawsuit. Right? I had a lot of people say, well, hey, Bob, isn't Congress going to solve this? You don't need a lawsuit. Well, maybe they won't solve it, and maybe the lawsuit will be the one thing that saves the DACA program. So I'm not an expert. I know there are good people on both sides of the aisle who want a solution, but sometimes it seems it can be difficult to get much support from members of Congress and the public. I'll keep my fingers crossed, but in the meantime, we'll be pursuing our litigation.
I think I saw a hand here in the second row. Yes.
Hi there, my name is Terry Niles, and first I want to thank you for everything you're doing and taking our fight to the courts, because I think that's really our only hope right now, and it's where we're getting. And on that note, as a citizen and an activist in my community, what can I do to support your efforts? I know I've done some work with the ACLU and stuff, and we have like an activism component to that. But what would you like to see citizens do to help you with your efforts?
Sure. So I'm sometimes asking what should folks do, and my feeling is, look, wherever one stands politically in the world, this is no time to be on the sidelines. Right? That's just number one. I just start from that place. It's not a time to be on the sidelines. And different people are in different position, different station in life, and can do different things. Hey, there's the young woman who wrote the testimony that you heard earlier today. That's a powerful thing to be doing in her situation, lending her voice to what's going on. In the cases we do, we have dreamers at our press conferences as part of our lawsuit. So people are helping. It's not just us citing a whole bunch of cases. We have individualized stories talking about the impacts on dreamers and their families. So my view is, hey, I'm the Attorney General, I can file lawsuits. Individual citizens can write letters, they can march, they can organize, they can write. All those things matter. All those things matter. And so whatever works for you in terms of lending a voice, it helps. Look, I think it was, in a courtroom, yes, it's about the facts and the law, but do I think that in general, the environment that went on that first travel ban, that there were protests going on at airports, and that was occupying the television news nonstop? Do I think, because keep in mind, what we were asking for in that first travel ban was, it was in effect, it was happening. And we were going to a judge, it's signed on a Friday night, it goes into effect, we file a lawsuit Monday, we work all weekend, file it Monday, in a week. That's fast. That's fast for the judicial process. And what we're saying to the judge is, hey judge, before you have a chance to look at a whole lot of briefs or for us to get documents from each other, we're asking you to stop the travel ban until you have the months it takes to make a final decision. Is very, very, it's a high hurdle. Do I think that it helped have an environment out there where any judges are human beings to see the impacts in real time and the outrage that was being expressed? Sure. I think that set a tone of how urgent this situation was and how immediate it was. And so I think every action matters, I think. It's just everyone's unique in what they can do or what's appropriate for them. And I will say on the Dreamers case in particular, I've had a chance to meet many Dreamers now in the past year, and those who in particular have been willing to come to public events with me and speak. Look, I can talk all day, but hearing from a Dreamer telling his or her own stories, obviously, far more powerful than anything I'm going to say to the public.
Let's take the right side here. Your name, please.
My name is Carissa. You mentioned Motel 6. Are you looking at any other motels or businesses for the same kind of behavior?
Just so everyone here, the questions about Motel 6, are we looking at other businesses? We have a policy in our office that we don't talk about any investigations we have. So we don't make anything public until we essentially file a lawsuit, right? And so I just wouldn't be able to speak to whether anything specific on investigations. Other attorneys general announce their investigations. We just don't do that. We wait till we feel it's ready. And what I can say is that, how about this? What I can say is the day we had that press conference, we heard from many entities, businesses, saying, hey, we'd like to have a conversation with your office. In other words, they realize, hey, maybe their policies aren't quite squaring with what's the reality is. That's a good thing, right? We want them to realize, oh my goodness, right? This is going on, and maybe we need to make sure we're following the law as well as the Attorney General sees it. So I can tell you that's certainly been happening, which we think is a good thing. We think it sends a clear message to the business community about what the rules are, especially to the hotel motel industry. And so, but in terms of a specific, investigation, I just can't, I can't get that. One thing I do hope, by the way, another way that folks can help on Motel 6 is there's 49 other state attorneys general out there. There's Motel 6s all around the country. No other state AGs filed a lawsuit. You've got relatives in other states. You can write to other state AGs. We get letters. We got letters. We've received many, many thank you letters from people all around the country. To me, I kind of feel like saying, thank you for writing to me, but hey, write to your AG and ask him or her to do something, right? Maybe they're doing their own investigation, but to communicate that out, hey, take a look at this situation, I think is very helpful as well.
Let's try to read.
I don't need a mic, I've got a loud voice. My name is Clay Mosier, and I too applaud what you've been doing, not just on this issue, but on several other things. I'm wondering, and given your previous comments, I'm not sure if you can answer this, but are you focused at all on the conditions in the detention center?
So I'll just repeat the question. The question is about the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma, for example. We focus on those issues. Yes. As I think many of you know, upwards of 1,500 individuals are detained at the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma at any one time. Importantly, the Northwest Detention Center is not a state-run entity. Far from it. It's run and owned by GEO Corporation. It's a very large entity. So I filed a lawsuit against GEO Corporation around Northwest Detention Center. Specifically, there have been many complaints. There have been a lot of things going on there in terms of conditions there. What we focused on for our lawsuit at this moment is that Washington State has a minimum wage law, of course, right? Now, there are exceptions to the minimum wage for a state-run prison, for example. But otherwise, everybody's got to pay a minimum wage if you're a private company. The Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma, other than the security, much of the labor that's done there is done by the 1,500 detainees who are residing there in a particular time. To clean up the kitchen, you name it. That is a significant amount by the detainees. They are paid, a whopping amount of like $1 a day, or sometimes in extra food for their meals. Literally, not exaggerating, $1 a day. Look, that's not how it works. We have minimum wage, and they need to be paying it, whether to the detainees or other individuals who they want to hire to run that operation. It's obviously a large case financially that we say this has been going on for many years. If you do the math on the minimum wage for all those individuals, it becomes a pretty big number pretty quickly. So yes, we have a lawsuit against the GEO Corporation, and what I'll say is that, litigation like that, can be hotly contested. It takes a lot of resources, and so, but my team is prepared for that, and this could be in the courts for a while, and so we'll keep you posted, but we did file a lawsuit against them.
Thank you.
You bet.
Here, I'm just going to come down.
Oh, perfect, that works.
Got it? All right. Yes.
My question is, with all of the Trump nominees taking their place in the legal system, do we have to be worried about whether or not we can trust the courts?
Well, it's an important question about the court system and how important those judicial appointments are. I guess I might reframe it a little bit. It's not, to me, it's not trusting the courts, right? And there's a lot of focus on the U.S. Supreme Court, which is obviously critically important, but keep in mind only a fraction of any federal number of cases get to the U.S. Supreme Court. The first travel ban never reached the U.S. Supreme Court. It was decided by a trial court judge in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Trump administration did not appeal it, so it was decided by the Ninth Circuit. The 5 cases we've won without further appeals, and then none of them went to the Supreme Court. So the vast majority of cases are resolved by the trial court or the Court of Appeals. So these judicial appointments The majority of them, of course, are at the trial court level or the federal courts of appeals. I was a law clerk at both those levels, worked for federal judges. Those are critically important appointments. And look, it's no secret that President Trump is looking for judges of a particular orientation, of a conservative bent. Look, elections have consequences. So if Republicans control both branches of Congress, there's a reason why a record number of judicial appointments are going through. And those are absolutely very, very important. So on the other hand, I wouldn't characterize those, can we trust the courts, right? And I don't put as much into, hey, was this judge appointed by that president or that president? I mean, I know a lot gets written, but for the travel ban, that first case, you get a random judge. You can file in a certain district, but then it's a random which judge you get within that district. The judge we got for the travel ban, Judge Robart, was an appointee of George W. Bush. He's no one's idea of a liberal judge. Tough but fair. Tough but fair judge. That's all you can ask for. And he ruled our way. But are there implications for the judicial system with any president of either party making appointments? You bet. And so that's why these elections matter so much. I mean, as a lawyer, there's lots of things I care about when I vote for president, but a big one for me is the knowledge of they're making, because those appointments live long after that president is gone. Years, decades on the court system. And so, but for me, it's not trusting it. Do I trust the court system? You bet. But some judges are just have a more conservative bent than others, right? That's you see that in their opinions. I don't mean that conservative in the political sense, but in their judicial orientation. And so those appointments matter.
I'm going to go over here. We haven't had a question over here.
Okay.
Couple more?
I'm doing great.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm good. It's up to, yeah.
Because
I'm good.
keep you here for
All
quite
right.
some time.
Hi, my name is Soraya. I wondered if you could mention anything that's being done on the state level to address the organized white supremacy and the fascists that present such a violent threat to our minority communities and just our communities in general, and what the state government is focusing on, and I suppose too what we could do to promote those efforts.
Yeah, I think, I guess what I would say is that I'm thankful I live in a state that has a governor, for example, who is outspoken on these issues, and state leaders at the state and local level who do that, which I think is particularly important in those areas. I mean, my rule is if someone's doing something illegal, that's when I can engage, right? So I wouldn't be able to speak with, say, on the policy side, the state legislature's in session right now. There are thousands of bills that are proposed. I don't pretend to be an expert on, hey, do they have some bills that are addressing some of those issues specifically? But I will say that I'm, that in Washington State, I think that that leadership, I think, speaks volumes and is important. Will there always be elements of those voices in our state and all states? Sure. But I think it's important. That's where kind of to the question of what can everybody do speaking out against that, right, is critically important. In whatever form that takes, and having leaders who are prepared to do that as well, I think is especially important. So, I don't think that's something you can legislate out, right, or necessarily as a lawsuit, right? There'll be fringe elements that, will say crazy things. But I think that's where, at a grassroots level or at a statewide official level, our voices need to be heard on that to say that's inappropriate, that's wrong, that's not right.
To here, whomever.
I'm Janet Lamersburg. I'm one of those people that wrote you a thank you note.
Oh,
And
great.
you wrote me back.
Oh, I did, good, there you go. So that worked, all right, you got it.
Share with us a little more of the cases that you've done to take on Trump, what you've won and what's currently pending that you haven't already discussed.
Sure, it's a long list, so I won't go through them all in the interest of time. And these are not in any particular order of importance, right? They're all important in their own way. So, but I think I can group some together in a way. So, as an example, and maybe I should also mention that the 19 lawsuits, some of those lawsuits are lawsuits that we have brought on our own in Washington State, filed here in Washington State, the first travel ban, for example, right? Other cases, we are working with other state AGs. or another state might be the lead, so we can balance our resources. The DACA case, it's Washington, New York, and Massachusetts that really the three of us are working most closely together. We shared the oral argument. One of the attorneys in my office, an attorney from the New York AG's office, shared that oral argument. So I just want to be clear, we're not doing all the work on all 19. But within those 19 cases, in addition to the ones that I mentioned, there is a group of cases that relate to environmental protection. So the Trump administration has tried to very quickly roll back numerous environmental protections put in place by the Obama administration. Helpfully for us, they are in such a hurry to do it, they are candidly slopping how they execute those decisions, which frankly allow us opportunities to defeat them in court. But there is a whole number of those 19 cases, a large number relate to climate change and the environment that were put in place under President Obama and that President Trump is trying to roll back, and we've gone to court to stop that. Another case on the more high-profile side is we're going to be in court, we have been in court, and we'll continue to be in court on the transgender military ban. So that's an example. We filed our own lawsuit. So that's when we filed our own lawsuit in the Western District of Washington. We were the first state to get an injunction stopping the transgender military ban. Interestingly, in that case, the Trump administration did not appeal the injunction like they did with the travel ban. So the injunction's in place. So transgender individuals are free to join the military as they have in the past. And so now we're simply moving forward on the merits of the case, right? Just that our goal is to have it declared unlawful. So we're filing motions on that. That's what we've done here in the Western District of Washington. I mean, we have litigation against the Secretary of Education, that's DeVos, on rollbacks for on student loan issues. So we have, this is not technically a lawsuit against the administration, but we of course have Obamacare. When President Obama was president, Republican members of Congress and others challenged the legality of Obamacare in many different forms. There's still litigation going on. We, Washington State, has actually intervened in that case to defend Obamacare because we lack confidence that the Trump administration will do so in a vigorous way, right? So we have intervened to defend it. So we're not technically suing the administration, but we've put ourselves in a posture to defend Obamacare because we don't think the Trump administration will do it. So those are a non-exclusive list, but so it runs the gamut, right? Consumer protection, transgender military bans, DACA recipients, travel bans. I mean, it's a the environment. It's a long list. Yeah, it's a long list. And I just should say, look, it's the team works really hard. The team works really hard. So, hey, if you see we have a Vancouver office in the AG's office, if you run into someone who works in the Vancouver AG's office, thank them. I mean, it's a team effort. But that first travel ban, my God, the hours that people were putting in, truly it was signed on a Friday night. Monday, we filed our lawsuit on Monday. Just take my word for it. That is a lawsuit that normally take weeks to put together. Weeks, if not months. And that is a huge body of work that was put together in literally 3 days. So on the DACA rescission, we filed the day after it was announced. I mean, we're not messing around, right? We know what's important. There's a lot of work that goes on, obviously, behind the scenes with that.
So my name is Gabriela. I attend here at Fort Vancouver. If nothing can be done about DACA, will students and adults, will they be continuing education? How can they be assured they will be guaranteed further education?
What was the very last part? How can
they be sure they will be guaranteed further education?
Well, I mean, I think the panel that's maybe coming may be able to speak to some of those issues even better than I can. Here's the thing, I don't want to overpromise anything. I can't make a guarantee for you. I can't do that. Nobody really can, right? I mean, if DACA is rescinded on March 5th, the situation is then different. At that point, the federal government can, if they choose, seek to deport individuals who are no longer protected. That's, it is what it is at that point, right? That doesn't mean there aren't things that folks can do. I want to be clear about that, but the ground has shifted at that point if it gets that. So nobody could offer a guarantee. I just want to be clear about that. Nobody could offer a guarantee. Now, our governor's working hard to make sure that our state government, our agencies don't turn over information to ICE or the federal government that will reveal information about individuals who are undocumented, for example, right? My office has put out guidance, our civil rights team has put out guidance to all public institutions, libraries, hospitals, jails. What information are they required to provide to ICE and law? They don't want to, right? So there are tools that folks have, right, to advocate, but I wish I could give you a guarantee, you know. I'm not the president, you know. I can do my best to stop him when I think he's doing something illegally, but I can't make that guarantee. And I'll be curious what the panel later on can speak to that, I think, a bit more as well. So I think we can do something, but we can't make a guarantee.
Hello, thank you. My name is Richard McCluskey. One Chris Kobach ran a scam nationwide, attempting to disenfranchise millions of voters, most of whom were people of color. I believe in this state we were well protected from that, but how vigilant do we need to be as citizens to make sure that that doesn't happen here? Were there any jurisdictions in the state of Washington that were affected by Chris Kobach's scam?
I'm not aware. So that's the Secretary of State's role, I want to be clear, so I'm not an expert on that. I'm not aware that we were adversely impacted. I feel like I would have been aware, and Shane's not aware either. You know, I think we have had in our state an independent Secretary of State's office for a long time, which I appreciate. Not every state has that. And I think our protections are quite good. We've been tested like other states have. We've come through pretty well on those tests. But remaining vigilant is key, right? And but I couldn't answer that specific question of what, maybe there's some impact I wasn't aware of, but I don't think there's anything on the significant side, but really the Secretary of State's office could answer for sure. But it is an example, there are so many different roles on these issues, right? The Secretary of State has a role, whether it's elected officials or individuals, everybody has a role to play in this and has to do their part.
Okay, we have time for just a couple more. We have someone, yes, standing.
Hi, my name is Dawn Wander. I actually probably don't need a microphone, but I love microphones, so I don't need one. So we all know freedom of speech is a constitutional right, but you also know you can't yell fire in a crowded theater if there's no fire. So I've been wondering when we're going to start to look at, and maybe you have some thoughts on, when do blatant lies and propaganda cross the line and become insightful? Inciting violence, inciting people to take actions that are not appropriate.
I mean, you're right, you can't say fire in this theater, for example, so there are limitations. I mean, that's a sort of political discourse, if that's what we're talking about. It's sort of political discourse, you know, is a lie. Does it reach that? No, I don't think so. That doesn't mean it's good, it doesn't mean it's healthy. I think what I would say is what I find, I mean, it's hard to say it's hard to say the one thing.
Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Immigrants are murderers, and they're murdering, you know, thousands of citizens across our country. That's not political discourse, blatant lie.
Well, I mean, I guess it would depend on a lot of facts and the context, right? I mean, I guess I just want to be clear. I guess I sort of thought you were referring to me what the president is saying about, right? It's, I would say that free speech protections are very broad in our country by design. And it's, but I guess what I would just say is that, you know, what I find especially troublesome in terms of the rhetoric that comes from the president, for example, and that I think will take years to undo, is what is being said about different communities in our country. What is being said, I mean, right, the shitholes comment, right, oh my God, right? Or comments about the free press, comments about the judiciary. The judge who ruled for the travel ban, right, was classed as a so-called judge, right? And other comments about the judiciary. You know, I'm not sure you can litigate your way out of those, I guess is what I'm saying, right? But I do feel that those are especially coarsening in our society, and that those institutions, free press, a diverse country, the role of the judiciary, are fundamental. To have a president speaking the way he does about those individuals, those communities, those institutions is, is going to be difficult to undo.
We have time for just one more, okay, one more, and then here, and then next, okay. Here we are.
I think that means two more.
Hello, my name is Daniel, and so we have talked about a lot about the dreamers, right? There's a lot of students here in the state of Washington that are not dreamers, because to apply for that, you had to be here before, I believe, July 1st, 2007. And there's a lot of students here in the state of Washington who got here after that, right? And so what about those? You know, it's like, you know, we need to protect those people as well, you know, like dreamers too, but those as well. And I mean, I know the state of Washington allows, even if you're undocumented, to pursue higher education due to the HB 1079, right? I believe you know the law, right? The House. But it's also a double-edged sword, because if you're not here 3 years prior to graduating, it could affect your higher career, because if you're not here, then how they're gonna charge you out-of-state tuition, and you will never be eligible for in-state tuition. So, and especially being undocumented, that puts a higher toll on you, because you can't work technically legally in the U.S. So, like paying out-of-state tuition within your own state that you've been living in, and you can't apply for scholarships, stuff like that. That makes it really hard on students, and you have to find another way to, you know, go around the 1079, which,
Sure.
So that was my thing, you know.
You raise an important point. You're right, we're talking about dreamers. There are many dreamers, but there are many other individuals obviously are undocumented. I guess a couple of thoughts. One is, that's partly why we put out this guidance from my civil rights unit for public institutions about what information they have to provide to ICE and what they do not, right? Why we're filing lawsuits Motel 6. We're doing what we can to make sure that information is not going out unless ICE has a warrant, the right information, undocumented individuals, whether it's students or adults or whatever it might be, right? I think that is something we can do in a concrete way. The state legislature, I think, is interested in these issues, and I think you should talk to your local legislators about these issues, your local elected officials on looking at the state level. You have a governor who is very committed, every bit as committed to these issues as I am, believe me, about that. I mean, he's a voice there and wants to be helpful. So on the state side, communicate to your legislators if there's something on the state legislative side. That's not my role, right? I don't vote on laws, right? That's primarily the state legislature. But I think that's an important avenue as well to pursue. So, is it still a challenge? Yes, but I think there are avenues that we have to assist with that. Was there one last question?
Yes.
Oh yes, all right.
Hi, my name is Martin. I am a student here at Washington State University, Vancouver. And I was wondering, should DACA be rescinded on March 5th, I believe? Yeah, what protections, what rights could you guys fight for to protect those students that would be in danger because of it being rescinded?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think I mentioned the key areas that we're focused on. I think just one more thing. I made the point before, but it's worth repeating that in terms of what I was asked. What can people do, right? Combined with this question is elections have consequences. The federal government enforces immigration law. Now look, I can fight within the confines of the law, right? Dreamers, if they're protected, or others, or make sure businesses are playing by the rules, or that information is not going out from public institutions they don't necessarily want to share. They know what they can share and what they don't have to share. That's important to do that. You know, so yes, there's a lot of hope, but hey, we're all meeting for a reason, right? There's a big challenge going on. And so you can't stop every hole in that dike. That's not possible. That's why those elections matter. Who represents you at the local level, or the state level, or the federal level, or as president, that all matters. So, but we are open as an office to any ideas that individuals have. My team, calling Melody, who will be on a plane home tomorrow from New York. Look, she's out meeting with the community all the time. Our team's meeting all the time. We get ideas from cases from the community all the time. Or different strategies we can do. Putting out that legal guidance was in part our response to hearing from the community, hey, different public institutions are taking a different approach to giving information about undocumented individuals. Do they have to get that information, or can they hold that back? What are they required to do? What do they not have to do? We were able to put together our guidance to let local institutions know what they have to do, what they don't have to do, where they have discretion and where they don't, and then they can make their decisions. So we'll keep doing that. If folks have ideas, we want to hear. And just to wrap up, it's thank you so much for all the questions. And I don't know whether this year there will be 19 more lawsuits against the Trump administration. I don't know that, but what I can tell you is that if the administration continues to flaunt the law, we will see them in court. I mean, that's just going to happen. And so there's the team in the office, they are deeply committed to this. We were talking to Pauline earlier today, right? We're driving from White Salmon. I was at a road over there. We're driving down the highway back to here and getting the update from how it went in court. And believe me, Colleen will be on a plane tomorrow when she lands. She's not going home. She's going to the office. She's getting ready for her next case, her next deposition, her next filing. We take it very, very seriously. And so we appreciate all that each of you are doing, your interest in the work of the office, and we promise to keep it up. Thank you so much.
I see this guy right here coming down, this guy falling, yeah. But I don't know if you want to come or...
Let's give it up one more time for Tony. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. Thank you. How y'all doing out here? Good? All right, very good. So listen, our next speaker is Mr. Oswaldo Camarena. Mr. Camarena is a graduate of Fort Vancouver High School. Yes. And the University of Washington. He recently received his Bachelor of Arts in Political Economy and is currently the administrative assistant for the first LULAC National Education Service Center Upward Bound site in the Pacific Northwest, located at Evergreen High School. That's a big deal, y'all. So please welcome Mr. Camarena.
Thank you, Dr. Ford, and good evening, everybody. I'm humbled, and what an honor it is to be in front of this crowd. And I'm just going to take a few minutes of your time to read a short statement written by a male dreamer from the local area. So I will begin. My name is Edgar. I'm 23 years old, and I graduated from this very high school back in 2012. During my senior year, I was discouraged about applying for colleges since I knew I was not eligible to receive financial aid to pay for my tuition. That was the most terrible feeling I have ever experienced. My classmates around me did not have to worry about finding money for college, and instead were worried about what school to attend. One day, I decided to make an effort to talk to Ms. Monick, the Career Center clerk, and explain to her my situation that I was placed in. A few months later, she was able to locate a scholarship that was aimed for me. There was one catch. I was to complete in writing an essay against the other people in the state of Washington. Ms. Monick helped me write out the essay, and by the time I graduated, I was awarded the scholarship. I started going to Clark College right after high school, thanks to that scholarship. I was a little worried that my future would not look like once I ran out of money. I could not qualify for FAFSA because I was not born in the United States. I became a DACA recipient as soon as I heard the news that President Obama wanted to help other individuals like myself to pursue careers and higher education. This action allowed me to get my first job and be eligible for WASFA from the state of Washington. I graduated Clark College with an associate's degree and academic honors. I was given an opportunity to continue my education at WSU Vancouver and pursue a bachelor's degree in biology with minors in chemistry and molecular biology. I am a tutor for the hard sciences at the school, volunteer at a dental clinic in my free time, and I currently am working in a biochemical research lab as a research intern. I am grateful I was eligible to receive DACA because it allowed me to continue my education past that first year in community college. If a Clean Dream Act is not passed, that would mean I would have to give up my dream of becoming a dentist, despite how much time and effort I have given to get where I am currently, and also quit my job since I would no longer be eligible to continue working. DACA has made my dreams possible. Thank you, Edgar.
So at this time, I am going to invite our panelists as we reset. And I want to thank again Oswaldo Camarena representing a voice for dreamers. Listen, so the next part of tonight's event is a panel of 3 elected local officials. First, I'd like to describe the structure and the format for the panel before we get started. So our panelists, they were sent a few questions in order for them to prepare for tonight's discussion. And they will have just a few minutes, around 3 minutes or so to provide their answers to the questions. And because we spent so much quality time with Attorney General Ferguson, we will not have time for a Q&A portion here. But their emails are available to you in the program should you want to contact them. And I highly recommend that you take advantage of that. Our first panelist is City of Vancouver Mayor Pro Tem Bart Hansen. Bart Hansen was elected in 2010 and re-elected in 2011. He was elected to his current term in 2015. Hansen is a key accounts manager at Clark Public Utilities and devotes a considerable amount of his personal time coaching youth sports. Let's welcome Bart Hansen.
Thank you. Can you hear me? You all hear me? Yep. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I didn't graduate from Ford, but I did graduate from Hudson's Bay. Very close. With Toby. Toby the kid, right there. Back in the day, yes. To your first question, we had a gathering.
Before we go there, let me finish with the rest of our
I'm sorry. I thought I jumped right into it.
I appreciate the vigor, though. Okay, so our second panelist is Clark County Council Chair Mark Bolt. Mark Bolt was elected chair of the Clark County Council in November 2015 and took office January 1st, 2016. Mark served as 17th Legislative District Representative from 1995 through 2004. Mark and his family have lived in the Hockinson area since 1985. He and his wife, Dawn, have 6 children and 3 grandchildren. Please welcome Council Chair Mark Bolt.
Thank you.
And our third panelist is City of Washougal Mayor Molly Costin. Molly Costin was elected mayor of Washougal in November 2017. Molly has lived in Washougal since 2000 and has been an active community member since then. Molly is an active Rotarian for 15 years in the Camas Washougal Rotary Club. She's been in every Washougal School District levy bond, and she is on the board of the Columbian Gorge Refuge Stewards. Mayor Costin.
Thank you.
And so thank you all so much for giving up your time this evening. Are you ready now to answer some questions?
Yeah.
And so I think our community raised a few points related to this first question, and that really centers around your strategies for being proactive in response to bias incidents, perceived incidences of bias, and or hate groups or groups perceived to be of hate. Could you speak to that? And why don't we begin with Bart Hansen?
Go, Bart.
Good. Now that you've got a warm up. We had a gathering in Esther Sharp Park earlier, or last summer. And I think being proactive to a situation like that, it's first and foremost, we're going to be concerned about the safety of everyone involved. Everybody there. We believe in freedom of assembly, and people have the right to freedom of speech, while at the same time, paramount to this is going to be the safety of all those involved. And I really have to give hands on it. Our police department did a fabulous job. VPD really did a fabulous job in keeping everything under control and at the same time giving those freedoms. Now, when I was there, and I think an important piece to this is folks are going to have their freedom of speech. They're going to have their freedom of assembly. So do you. But I'm preaching to the choir right now because all of you are sitting here right now doing exactly that. It's getting more folks to come out. Steve Stewart used to tell me, Bart, you're either at the table or you're on the menu. It's one or the other. So getting out into the public and getting your word out there is very important. And you all have the opportunity to do that as well, and so does everybody else. But I think if we can do it in a peaceful way, and we can communicate, there were some folks there that were probably there to, incite one way or another. But at the same time, they were sort of curbed down a little bit, and we had our folks out there letting their voice be heard. That's what this is all about.
Would you like to?
Certainly. So I've been mayor for 4 weeks, almost 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you. So my response is going to be a little bit different. So I called our police chief and I said, Chief Mitchell, what would happen if we had a group like this, a hate group, that came in and wanted to do some kind of a vigil or a prayer, knowing that it would be incendiary? So he said, well, we don't really have, a staff to work with this. We have like 20 officers total. That's our total police force. But we have mutual aid. We have agencies in Camas, Clark County, Vancouver, and all over the place that do have expertise in this. Now, my community is a very compassionate community. And I think if this were to happen, it would bring people out from churches, from nonprofits, from local organizations, and just as Bart said, that would be at the table on an occasion like this. So that's what my hope is, and I would certainly do everything that I could to keep it from going violent. The questions that are asked tonight are things I'm going to be looking at further as I continue my administration as mayor. And so I'm hoping to be able to have a much better answer to this in the future. But certainly, I think my community and my staff would respond very well. Thank you.
Thank you. I've thought quite a bit about this question, and I figured Bart would steal most of our thunder. So, but actually, this question reminds me of a story. How do you tell a real $20 bill from a counterfeit $20 bill. And the question is you study the real $20 bill. You don't worry about the counterfeit of the bill. And I guess to put that in perspective, you are the real deal. And when we really honor ourselves, when we have values, when we stick to them, that is the best medicine. You know, the people that may march, they can do what they want, you know. But you know the truth, you have what is in your souls, what is in your community, and you know, as the story goes in the Bible, only a fool argues with a fool. Well, that's why I didn't go down there, because I didn't want to argue. So anyway, so I think all of us in this room, that is what we have as the best medicine. Is we know who we are, and we stand up for who we are, and we're going to continue that fight.
Good. And so a piece of that that I heard is about the value and knowing our values. And I believe when we understand our values, that we're able to create space to empower and to create spaces of visibility. Could you talk about what you're doing to encourage underrepresented communities to have voice and to ensure that their voices are heard? And we'll begin with you.
I think we'll have all the same probably answers, but first of all, you have all of our emails, right? Mm-hmm. So that's probably the one thing, is that I've never turned an email down. I'm pretty sure these two haven't. If you have, or a phone call, or a letter, or anything else, you in this country and in this county and the cities have an opportunity to talk to us one-on-one or with an email. Most people don't take that option of doing that. And I've always said, I'm your servant. I'm elected countywide. So if you're 6 months or 96 years old, you're my boss. And what you say to me, I value. I think you're going to hear this. So that's where it really starts. The other one is we all have committees, and we've all done probably a better job, but we could do a lot better job from the county of really reaching out to you. And one of the things that will help us a lot is for you to tell at least the county in our way we have committees or assignments, or the way we talk to people maybe in the building department or the health department, as saying, this is the way you could communicate a little better. This is the way you could say this in a little more respectful way. Because what we don't know it if you don't tell us, and then we know it. So I think it's the open answer, and we'll be glad to hear that. So thank you.
Love that. Yes, Mayor Costa.
I would agree with Mark, and that we do always have public comments at the beginning of every workshop and at the end of every workshop and every council meeting. But I don't really believe that people need to come into City Hall to be a part of government. And furthermore, I don't really believe that government is the answer to everything. We can't do everything. And we'll be doing less, I think, in the future, and relying on the community to step up. And so I really hope that the community in Washougal or Camas or Battleground or Amboy or Yacolt or Vancouver, that community and the segments of the community, like the Latino community or the Black community or the disenfranchised community or the LGBT community, will step up. Like, we love events out there. We love to have events and parties in the summer. And we would be more than happy to have, which we had hoped to have last year, a tamale festival in our Reflection Plaza. Now that brings elements of the Latino culture and the local community together. We meet each other, we talk to each other, and I think that way of communicating in a one-on-one basis is a really big way to make a big difference in becoming more equitable across the board and understanding each other. So I guess I would just say that like Mark said, to really reach out to us, explain what the situation is and what your issues are, and we'll do more than, I will certainly do as much as I can to bring justice to the cause. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As far as being accessible, my cell number is 360-921-5592. I come before groups like this all the time. Second time, 360-921-5592. I'll get one call from this group. And I'm hoping to get more calls and text messages from this group because I want you to know that I am easily accessible. All of us are. And, you know, what are we doing at the City of Vancouver? Several different things. The chief has a diversity advisory task force that he brings in to all the decisions that are being made within our police department, the hiring practices, the promotion, all of the different factors that go in our police department, our community resource teams where we talk about our police, our fire, how we're going to fund the city. All of this is brought through in bringing diversity to our city. But it also comes down to, what are you doing as an elected official? A lot of elected officials just go up, they vote, talk about what a good job they did, and they go home and yay. You got to do more than that. What are you actually doing? And one thing that I can point out that this crowd up here and Dr. Webb has done, very proud of, is the Apple Pass. Now, I don't know how many of you students have actually used the Apple Pass, but it is something that we have reached out into all the communities. Each one of these people sitting to my left here are on the C-Train board. Dr. Webb made it happen within the Vancouver School District. That's giving free bus passes to kids in middle school and high school, regardless of if you're on free or reduced lunch, your race, your ethnicity, whatever, it doesn't matter. You get a free pass. That's how we're going to make this community better. Action.
That's right. Yeah. We're talking about hate groups, and you brought up my rally this summer, and I just want to say that my name is Joey Gibson. I'm a case of prayer. No, excuse me. I preach love and I preach freedom. That is it. And he brings up me as a hate group. All I ever do is preach freedom and love. That's it. And you're marching up Antifa.
Joy, I never said hate group. I never said hate group. No. Let him speak. Let him speak. I think it's very important to let him speak. I never classified you as hate group. I never said the word tonight. I never said hate group once. Please sit down and.
You brought up the hate group and you brought up my rally. And all I'm saying, I'm just here to say that that's inappropriate. And did you protest the rally?
No, I simply observed.
So were you there to have your voice heard and you're marching around with Antifa or not?
Actually, I was there to make sure our police department was acting in the way that they should be acting, and they did it 100%. I was very proud.
To make sure you understand that you got to bring up Antifa. You talk about hate groups. They're the hate group.
I never said that word.
I'm talking about love and I'm talking about freedom.
Oh, and you know what? I appreciate that.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt on your head up. Okay? Thank you.
Not so sorry, I don't think.
See, my personal opinion, it is.
Right, telling the truth next time.
Thanks. Have a safe drive. My opinion, give people the opportunity to speak. How does opportunity to speak? We're having our opportunity to speak. We're all going to leave here tonight in one piece.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
That's fair. I want to do a quick check-in. Are we okay here? Yeah. We good?
Yeah,
we're
okay.
still holding space.
Like
We're holding the space. TV. That's right. That's right. Who said that? Say it again.
You cannot run us out.
I applaud that. That's right. And so, and you touched on this a bit already in terms of some of those policies around diversity and equity. Can you talk more about specific policies that you're working on, policies that will be in place to address organizational and programmatic diversity, equity, and inclusion under your respective governance?
Well, I got to be frank with you. I'm not even there yet. I'm still in the honeymoon phase of my mayoral term. While I do believe in that concept, I had not thought about that particular idea before. So if I can take a little pivot, what they call a pivot, I just want to say, why would LULAC invite me, a mayor of 4 weeks up here, and why would I accept? And I really think it's because I spent 30 years in Tucson, Arizona, where I graduated from the U of A. And so I grew up in a community that was culturally very diverse. I mean, the Hispanic Latino community was integrated, woven into the fabric of Tucson in southern Arizona. And so I have great empathy for a lot of the problems, and I've talked to a couple of the LULAC folks about DACA and about some of the issues that I care deeply about. Now I'm hoping that as I progress in my tenure, and I'm sure that I will, that I'll find ways to make inclusion and programmatic changes of more inclusiveness a reality. And so, you know, frankly, that's about all I can say about this. I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Thank you very much. I guess before I talk about the county, I kind of grew up in this. Even though I'm wearing a suit, I spent 40 years. I owned a blueberry farm, so I picked fruit, and I was really bad at it too. But that's how you tell, you know, what the owner is. They're the worst person on the farm, so they own the farm. But anyway, so I just kind of grew up with that, and so it's just really a part of my life, you know. When I become elected as a county commissioner, we had the word diversity. So the diversity was really how, if we were a diverse community, we were able to get grant funds. And so that was it. We got grant funds, so we put the word diversity. And if you got more grant funds at that time, you had to put the, you know, string them together, and you would add more and more words of diversity. It didn't go over very good. What we had, myself, the county manager at that time, Bill Barron, went to a meeting with LULAC and NAACP. And essentially, they laid the law down. It was well, we were dinner, essentially. But it really changed what the county did. We become better. We didn't just say the word diverse and all that stuff. We hired a coordinator, Rika Strong. We done things to really feel each other. That went away and it actually came back. Well, I think the county now has a very good diversity. As I was saying, a member of your staff came and he is training from WSU. He's training our workforce. And when we say, because I've been in them trainings, when we say a pat answer, you know, we can't get by with it. He holds our feet to the fire, asks us what we are. And I think that's probably will help us more as really relating to a person. And I think one of the things that I appreciate Mr. Ferguson's comments is he makes people feel uncomfortable, especially the President of the United States. But, you know, and it is decisions like that, just like what we went through, it is the dialogue that some degree, some people would say, oh, I feel uncomfortable, so I'm not going to talk through that, or talk that dialogue that Bart and him did. Well, it's actually the hard conversations that will get us further in this life than we've been. So I think we're going a long ways.
Mr. Hanson. Thank you. Diversity at the City of Vancouver. You know, we're doing everything we can to make sure that the folks we bring into the City of Vancouver, we have a diverse array, and that is exactly what we're looking for. You know, I can remember a time when we met here at Fort Vancouver, and we were talking about how the City of Vancouver's police are going to work in the City of Vancouver and how we're going to do our police work. The reason I say our, they are our police. Mine and yours. Our police. And they went through exactly what they're going to be doing as far as not enforcing a lot of these rules coming down at the federal level. We're not here to do ICE's work, period. And I think it's important that you know that and you hear that consistent message. We are not here to do ICE's work. When you take a look at what we see on the city councils, we see a group of citizens. I mean, if If you're a student and you're at Fort Vancouver, Hudson's Bay, I don't care where you're at, and you're there to get your work done every day and get good grades, you are an American. If you're here and you're going to come to work every day and you're going to give 8 hours and you're going to do what you have to do all day long, you are an American. If you are going to come in and pay your taxes and complain about your politicians, you are an American. Okay? And we are all too happy to have you here as being one of us. And I'll leave on that.
Great. Thank you. Let's give it up for our panel. So this concludes the time that we have with you all. Thank you so much for offering your expertise this evening. Again, if you wish to follow up with them, their contact information can be found in the program. Mr. Hanson, what's your phone number again?
921-5592.
There you go. All right. Again, let's give it up for our panel. All right. And so we are reaching the end of our program this evening. And before we conclude, I would like to call to the stage a group of leaders who actually organized this event tonight. So let's give them a thunderous round of applause. Organizers of this event. Yes, Diana Perez.
Okay, not all our leaders are coming up here for fear of stage light, but that's okay. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Diana Perez, and I'm the Washington State Director for the League of United Latin American Citizens. LULAC started in 1929. It's a civil rights organization made up of over 1,000 councils throughout the United States, Puerto Rico, and Alaska. And we have a very strong council here in Southwest Washington, 47013. Carmen will introduce herself as president, but all of us here have supported each other to do things like tonight, so it's not just me. But before our next section, which is our call to action, I'd like to go ahead and have the rest of the leaders introduce themselves.
Hello, again, my name is Diana Avalos-Leos, and I am with the I have some fans out there, I guess. And I am honored to stand here with these ladies and here in front of you tonight. Thank you all for coming out and supporting our efforts and being authentic and transparent in our conversations tonight. I'm going to just do my call of action right now, if that's okay. As part of the Healthy Living Collaborative Southwest Washington, we partner with 50 organizations in 4 different counties: Clark, Cowlitz, Skamania, and Wahkiakum. And one of our focus this year is our work on equity. And our commitment to a work on equity in our communities across the 4 countries is to bring awareness and engage our communities to participate in voter registration drives. So tonight, thank you. So tonight, if you are a registered voter and you know someone who may need help with signing up to vote, we have a table outside in the lobby. Please pick up information. If you have not registered to vote, we have people out in the lobby to help assist you in filling out forms and help answer any questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Carmen McKibben, and I serve as Council President for Southwest Washington LULAC 47013. And when I'm not having fun on the local policy issues, I help out my lady over here on the far left, Diana Perez, serve as Deputy Director for the Washington State LULAC Board. And thank you all for coming here and listening to various perspectives from the Attorney General, and of course listening to our youth, you know, asking those questions. I want to give an applaud for them. It's awesome. And I guess I will pass it along here, and I'll hold off on my call to action.
Hi, my name is Luz Gonzalez, and I am with the Latino Community Resource Group. It's a nonprofit organization here in Clark County. And I'm just going to do my call for action right now. I want to say thank you so much to all of you who showed up today. Also, thank you to our panelists and Bob Ferguson for their continued support. It is an honor for me to reside in the city of Vancouver and the state of Washington, and that is only because our immigrant communities can feel welcome and safe in this community, and so thank you so much for that.
So we have one more group, De Serio, who's in the back, too shy to come up here, so that's the Vancouver One America. Our call to action. Elections have consequences, do they not?
Yes.
What are we going to do now?
Vote.
What else are we going to do? And what else are we going to do?
Knock doors.
And we're going to help others get registered to vote. Right? And what else are we going to do?
We're going to hold them accountable.
Okay, we're going to hold them accountable. But here's something else you can do. We have a moral crisis right now. We have a mess. And it's impacting more than 800,000 lives. Many lives here locally, as you well heard today earlier. So in the back, we have some note cards that you can take with you and write your own personal message. A message of hope. To who? To our Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Builder. You take that note card and you write a sentence or two and you hand deliver it to her office, or you mail it, or you can give it to any one of us and we can hand deliver it for you. So your job is to take action, because elections have results. And in this next election, we're going to be ready, because we don't like the result we got. We don't like the consequences. And that's why we're here listening to our great state leaders who was voted in, and we want to keep voting in great leaders who represent my family values, your views, the person who spoke out in the back, because that is the way our rights are given to us. But there's a fine line of humanity and compassion, a fine line that has been crossed in morality. And we're going to stand here and say, no more.
Follow that up, yes. Well, I mean, yes, vote, but also educate yourself on policies with the equity and inclusion lens. Because I'm telling you right now, it's going to take you a whole different level. So my call to action is teach yourself on that piece. How does that look for a community of refugees, immigrants, people of color? But also educate, use that same voice to educate others in your community. And look at the policies happening in the city, county, state level with that equity and inclusive lens. Is it there? How can we make that happen? Thank you.
Give a round of applause to Dr. Obi Ford.
Thank you so much. Let's give another round of applause to our leaders up here tonight. And so, we have received our call to action. And as you leave here tonight, I want you to consider
that call, and to also think about that one thing, right? What is that one thing that you can do to spread hope, right? What is that one thing that you can do to serve, to love, to inspire, to create, to elevate in the name of humanity, right? In the name of building equitable community? What is that one thing that you can do as you leave here tonight? And so I also want for you to give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Come on, give it up for yourselves. We really appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you. Thank you to all of our speakers, including our keynote, Attorney General Bob Ferguson. Members of the press, reporters, if you want to follow up with any questions or need to speak with any of our speakers this evening, they will be out in the lobby for a few moments. I will also say that a streaming audio replay of this event will be available on Facebook. And last but certainly not least, let's give it up to all of the students here this evening from Fort Vancouver High School. Thank you. Will help all of us out this evening, and just your voices being represented is so key and so important. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. Gratitude is what we give here. And so listen, that concludes tonight's event. Go in love, go in peace, and spread a message of hope. Thank you.
I think I'm doing well. How about you?
Check.